The sky was dark long before the storm arrived, a quiet warning that most grown men of the frontier understood but a little girl chose to ignore. 12-year-old Mary Collins had spent her entire life on the prairie, where winds howled like wolves and silence carried secrets older than the land itself. That evening, as the rain began to fall in thick, slanted sheets, Mary guided her horse Ginger across the open field, trying to find her father who was late returning from town. The thunder rolled like distant cannon fire, and lightning split the sky in jagged veins of white, making the empty plains look like the end of the world. As Mary pushed forward, something caught her eye near the big wooden gallows structure left behind by ranchers, a shape hanging, swaying slightly in the wind. At first she thought it was some abandoned supply sack, but as she approached, her breath caught in her chest. A warrior was tied to the crossbeam, arms stretched above him, his head drooping forward as rain streamed down his bare chest. He wasn't white. He wore a feathered headdress, tribal beads, and leather leggings. A Comanche, a real warrior of the plains. Mary's heart thudded. Her father had told stories about Comanches, some terrifying, some respectful, stories of fierce battles and sacred honor, but none of those stories mentioned leaving a man tied up like an animal during a storm. She had no idea who had done this. Ranchers, bounty hunters, or worse, the men she had seen riding earlier who looked drunk on violence. Whatever the answer, one thing was clear. The warrior would die if she didn't help him. The rope around his wrists had dug deep into his skin, and the wind swung him painfully. Mary swallowed the fear rising in her throat. She was small, she was alone, and she had no plan, just a heartbeat telling her the truth. If I ride away, he dies. Ginger shifted nervously beneath her as thunder slammed across the sky. Mary looked at the warrior again. His eyes slowly lifted, and even in the rain, even through the pain, they held a dignity she had never seen in any grown man around her. He didn't beg. He didn't speak. He simply watched her with the quiet acceptance of someone who had already faced death before. Mary took a breath. "I'll help you," she whispered, though she didn't know if he understood English. She urged Ginger closer. The horse hesitated at first, then stepped forward, loyal and brave. Mary stood on the saddle, wobbling as rain soaked her dress and hair. She had climbed trees taller than this, but this time everything felt different. Every movement mattered. The warrior watched as she pulled the small carving knife her father had gifted her on her last birthday. Her hands trembled. She lifted the blade toward the rope. A flash of lightning exploded behind them, lighting the sky pure white, making the moment look carved from legend. The thunder shook her bones, but she kept going. The rope fibers resisted at first, swollen from the rain thick with strength. She sawed harder, balancing on Ginger's swaying back, ignoring the fear screaming inside her. Below, mud sucked around Ginger's hooves. Mary almost slipped, but the warrior's low voice, calm, deep, steady, reached her. She didn't understand the words, but she understood the meaning. Be brave. She cut again, harder this time. The rope finally snapped. The warrior fell forward, and Mary almost crashed down with him. Only Ginger's quick shift and the warrior's sudden twist kept them both from hitting the ground. He dropped to his knees, breathing hard, arms numb but alive. Lightning cracked again, and Mary flinched. That's when she saw movement in the distance. Horsemen riding toward them, 3 of them, black silhouettes moving fast, and she recognized the leader, the same outlaw she'd seen earlier in town, boasting about making examples of Indians. Her blood ran cold. They weren't coming to check on their prisoner. They were coming back to finish what they started. Mary's mind burned with panic. The warrior, though weak, rose slowly, instinctively stepping between her and the riders, even after she had just saved him. But he was injured, exhausted, unarmed. The riders grew closer, guns glinting under the stormlight. Mary felt the world tighten around her like a noose. She had saved a warrior, and now the storm had brought the killers back, and she knew they wouldn't spare a little girl who got in their way. She looked at the warrior, this brave, battered man whose life had become entwined with hers within minutes, and for the first time, understood the true danger of the frontier. Saving him was only the beginning. What came next would shake the entire frontier. The 3 riders cut through the storm like wolves scenting blood, their black coats whipping behind them in the wind. Mary's pulse hammered as the warrior steadied himself beside her, though his arms trembled from the rope burns. The outlaw leader, Clay Rourke, stopped his horse just 10 feet away, lightning illuminating the cruel smirk on his bearded face. "Well, ain't this something?" he drawled. "A filthy Comanche and a meddlin' brat." Mary clenched the reins, Ginger shifting nervously under her. She knew Rourke's type. Men who thought the frontier belonged to them. Men who punished anything they didn't understand. The warrior, breathing heavily, took a small step forward despite his pain, positioning himself between Mary and danger. The gesture ignited something fierce inside her. Clay spat into the mud. "We left him here to die slow. Now we'll deal with both of you," the warrior muttered. Something in Comanche. Mary didn't understand the words, but she felt their weight. Without a weapon, he still stood tall, like a storm refusing to bow. Clay pulled out his revolver, leveling it straight at Mary's chest. The world shrank. Rain, thunder, a gun, death. And yet Mary didn't cry, didn't run, didn't beg. She had done the right thing, and she would die standing, before she regretted it. But fate wasn't finished. In the distance, another figure emerged through the curtain of rain. Mary's father, Daniel Collins, riding hard, rifle strapped to his side, coat flapping in the storm wind. Clay cursed. "Collins again. Always sticking your nose where it don't belong." Daniel reached them quickly, jumped off his horse, and stood beside Mary with a steadiness she had only ever seen when he protected their homestead from wolves. "My daughter saved that man," Daniel said calmly. "And nobody's taken him," Clay sneered. "He's a savage." Daniel lifted his rifle, eyes cold. "He's a man tied up by cowards." The standoff was electric, tension slicing through the storm. For a long second, nobody moved. Then Clay snarled and lifted his gun. But the warrior moved faster. With a burst of raw strength, he leapt forward, grabbing Clay's wrist, twisting hard. The gun fired into the sky. Horses screamed and reared. The other two riders tried to pull their guns, but Daniel fired first, grazing one man's arm. The warrior disarmed Clay in one brutal motion, sending him crashing into the mud. The fight was chaotic, raw, and desperate. Mud splashed. Thunder cracked. Guns fired. The Comanche warrior fought like a storm given flesh, using his speed and instinct against men twice his size. One of the riders fled, and the other lay unconscious by the time the struggle ended. Clay tried to scramble away, but Mary stepped forward, pointing Daniel's spare pistol at him with trembling hands. Her voice was small but steady. "Leave, and never come back." Clay looked at her, this tiny, rain-soaked child holding his fate in her hands, and something like fear flickered across his face. He spat blood, stumbled to his horse, and rode off into the storm, disappearing into the night. Silence finally settled over the field, broken only by the soft rumble of thunder moving farther away. Mary lowered the gun. Her hands shook violently, but inside her burned a strange and powerful calm. The warrior approached her, placing a hand over his heart in a silent gesture of deep honor. He spoke softly in his native language, and though Mary didn't know the exact words, she felt their meaning. "You saved me. I owe you my life," Daniel translated quietly. "He says you are brave. Braver than most men." Mary's throat tightened. The warrior stepped closer, gently touching the cut rope still hanging from the beam, then looking at the little girl who had stood on a saddle in the middle of a lightning storm to save a stranger. Daniel offered the warrior shelter until dawn, but the man shook his head. His tribe would be searching for him. Before he left, he placed a feather in Mary's hand, a warrior's feather, a symbol of sacred honor. "He wants you to keep it," Daniel said. "He says stories will be told about tonight." And stories were told, not just among the Comanche, who spoke of a small white girl with a lion's heart, but among ranchers, travelers, traders, and frontier families across thousands of miles. They spoke of the child who stood on a saddle in the middle of a storm, the child who saved a warrior, the child who changed the night the frontier learned what true courage looked like. And though Mary grew older, though life moved on, the feather remained with her forever, proof that even the smallest person can shape the fate of a land as wild as the West. And every time she looked at it, she remembered that bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing to do what's right, even when the whole world is storming around you.